Here's something nobody tells smart people. Being smart is not always an advantage. In fact, in one very specific situation, a situation you probably find yourself in more often than you'd like to admit, being smart is the thing holding you back. Not laziness, not lack of talent, not bad luck. Your own intelligence. Think about the last time you had a goal, something you genuinely wanted, a project, a career move, a habit, something that mattered to you. Now think about what happened next. You didn't just start. You researched, you planned, you considered every possible angle. You thought about what could go wrong. You thought about what could go right. You thought about what other people had done. You thought about what made them fail. And then, while you were still thinking, someone with half your capability just started, and they're already ahead of you. That moment, that specific, frustrating moment, has a name, it has a mechanism, and once you understand it completely, you will never look at your own intelligence the same way again. Today, we're going to go all the way to the root. Not the symptoms, not the usual advice about taking action or just doing it or thinking less. The actual reason this happens, why it happens specifically to smart people, and the single shift that fixes it. Let's get into it. Here's what's actually happening inside a smart person's brain when they face a decision or a task. The average person looks at a situation and sees a limited number of paths, maybe 2 or 3 options. They pick one and move. The smart person looks at the same situation and sees something different. They see all the paths, every option, every variable, every potential outcome of every potential choice. And not just the obvious ones, the second-order effects, the third-order effects, what happens after what happens. In psychology, this is called divergent thinking, and it is genuinely a marker of high intelligence. The ability to generate multiple possibilities from a single starting point is one of the most studied cognitive advantages a human brain can have. But here's the problem nobody mentions in the same breath. The same brain that generates 10 possible paths has to choose one, and the moment you have 10 options instead of 2, the cost of choosing wrong feels 10 times higher. Psychologist Barry Schwartz spent years studying this exact phenomenon. He called it the paradox of choice. His research showed something counterintuitive. The more options a person has, the less satisfied they are with their eventual choice, and the longer they take to make it. Not because they're indecisive, because their brain is doing exactly what a smart brain does. It's evaluating everything, simultaneously, continuously, without stopping. And that evaluation loop, that constant mental processing, has another name. You already know it. Overthinking. Now, here's where it gets specific, because everyone overthinks sometimes, but smart people overthink structurally. It's not a mood, it's not stress, it's the default operating mode of a brain that has been rewarded its entire life for thinking more carefully than everyone else. Think about it. From the time you were young, thinking deeply was praised, asking questions was praised, seeing what others missed was praised. Your intelligence was the thing that got you recognition, that earned you respect, that made you feel capable and valuable. So your brain learned something at a very fundamental level. Thinking harder equals better outcomes. And in many situations, that's true. In school it was true, in analysis it's true, in solving complex problems it's true. But there is one situation where thinking harder actively produces worse outcomes, and that situation is starting. Neuroscientist Dr. Robert Sapolsky at Stanford University has studied decision-making in the brain for over 30 years. His research shows that the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning, analysis, and complex reasoning, can actually inhibit action when it becomes overactive. In simple terms, the more developed your planning brain is, the better it is at generating reasons why right now is not the right time, why you need more information, why the conditions aren't quite perfect yet, why starting tomorrow makes more sense. Your intelligence isn't failing you, it's doing exactly what it was built to do. It's just doing it at exactly the wrong moment. Here's the part of this that most productivity advice completely misses. Overthinking doesn't just delay action, it creates a cycle, a specific self-reinforcing cycle that gets harder to break the longer it runs. This is how it works. You have a goal, you start thinking about it instead of doing it. Time passes, now you have even more information than when you started. More options, more angles, more complexity. So the decision feels even harder. And while you've been thinking, the pressure has been building. The gap between where you are and where you want to be has gotten wider. And a wider gap means higher stakes. And higher stakes means your brain generates even more reasons to think before acting. And here's the cruelest part. Smart people are aware of this cycle. You can see it happening. You can describe it to other people. You can probably recognize it right now in something you're currently avoiding. But awareness alone doesn't break it, because the cycle isn't running on lack of knowledge, it's running on a faulty equation your brain learned a long time ago. That equation is this: more thinking equals more certainty equals less risk equals safety. And your brain, your smart, capable, well-meaning brain, is chasing that certainty with everything it has. The problem is, certainty about the future doesn't exist. You can think for another week, another month, another year, and you will never have the certainty your brain is looking for, because it isn't there. So if awareness doesn't fix it, and more thinking makes it worse, what actually breaks the cycle? To fix this properly, we need to go one level deeper than the overthinking itself, because overthinking is not the root, it's a symptom. The root is something more specific. It's the belief that a wrong first step is worse than no step at all. Read that again. The belief that a wrong first step is worse than no step at all. This is the operating assumption running silently underneath every delayed decision, every abandoned plan, every idea still living in a notebook and nowhere else. And for smart people, this belief feels rational, because smart people have high standards. You can clearly envision what good looks like, and the distance between your first attempt and what you know is possible is painful to look at. Psychologist Carol Dweck at Stanford University spent decades studying this exact tension. She called it the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. But here's the part of her research that doesn't get quoted enough. She found that high-ability individuals, people identified as gifted or intelligent, were actually more likely to avoid challenges than average-ability individuals. Not less likely, more likely. Because smart people have more to lose. Their identity, the story they tell about themselves, is built on being capable, on getting things right, on seeing clearly. And a messy, imperfect first attempt threatens that identity in a way it simply doesn't for someone with less invested in the idea of their own intelligence. So the overthinking isn't really about the task, it's about protecting the image of the person doing the task. That is the root. So here's the fix, and I want to be honest with you, it's not a technique, it's not a system, it's a single mental shift, but it's the shift that everything else depends on. Here it is. You have to replace the goal of certainty with the goal of information. Let me explain what that means practically. Right now, when you face a task or decision, your brain is asking, what is the right move? And it won't stop processing until it finds an answer it's confident in, which, as we've established, it never fully does. The shift is to change the question. Instead of, what is the right move, ask, what will I learn most right now? This is not a semantic trick, it's a complete rewiring of what action means. When the goal is certainty, action is risky, because a wrong action threatens certainty. When the goal is information, action is the only path forward, because every action, right or wrong, returns data. Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, built one of the most successful companies in history on a version of this principle. He called it the distinction between Type 1 and Type 2 decisions. Type 1 decisions are irreversible. They require deep thought. They are rare. Type 2 decisions are reversible. They can be undone, adjusted, corrected, and they make up the vast majority of everything you and I actually face. His rule for Type 2 decisions was simple: move fast with good enough information, because the cost of delay almost always exceeds the cost of a correctable mistake. Most of what you've been overthinking is a Type 2 decision: reversible, correctable, survivable. The wrong first draft can be rewritten, the wrong first approach can be adjusted, the imperfect beginning can become the foundation for something excellent. But the thing that was never started, that stays exactly where it is, forever. Here's what I want you to take from this. Your intelligence is not the problem. The way you've been using it is. You've been pointing one of your greatest assets at a target it cannot hit, future certainty, when it would be infinitely more powerful pointed at present action. The smartest move a smart person can make is learning when to stop thinking and start collecting real data from the real world. Not because thinking is bad, because the world gives you information that your mind alone never can. Every attempt teaches you something. Every imperfect start builds something. Every messy first step closes the gap between who you are now and who you're trying to become. The person who starts today with 60% of the information will always outlearn the person who waits for 90% and never begins. You have spent years being the smartest person in the room. Now it's time to become the most useful person in the room. Not the one with the best plan, the one with the most real experience, the one who has actually done the thing, failed at the thing, learned from the thing, and kept going anyway. That person, the one who acts before they're ready, is not less intelligent than you. They're just further ahead. And the only thing standing between you and that version of yourself is the question you ask before you begin. Not, is this the right move, but what will I learn from this move? Ask that question once, then start. If this explains something you felt for a long time but never had words for, leave a comment, even if it's just, "This was me." I read every single one.